These animals might genuinely surprise you. A wolf with no jaw, an elephant without a trunk, a fish left with only half its body, or even a crocodile that treated his buddy to one of his own legs. And they all survive, even after losing body parts supposedly essential to life. The coast of California. Right in front of the photographer, a sea lion grabs a sunfish and bites a giant chunk out of it. The photo shows everything in graphic detail. And in the following frames, this sea lion just calmly keeps chewing. The fish, to put it mildly, is not thrilled. And here's the most unexpected part. If the sea lion had simply dropped the fish and swum away without finishing it, the sunfish would actually have had a chance to survive. Yes, even in that condition. Just so you understand the scale, adult sunfish can be about 10 feet long and weigh up to 4,400 pounds. Basically the size of a small truck, only a swimming one. How does it manage to survive when something takes a bite out of it? An unobtrusive reminder to do that thing under the video. First of all, if you look at a sunfish's skeleton, you'll immediately notice something important. The spot where a sea lion usually takes a bite has no bones at all. Zero. Completely empty. And that's already a good sign. The logical question is, since there are no bones, then it must be all soft tissue, some vital organs there. Nope. A sunfish doesn't have a swim bladder, that gas-filled organ other fish use to control their buoyancy. Instead, it has a thick jelly-like layer just under the skin. It's about 90% water, reinforced with a mesh of collagen and elastin. Think of it as a built-in natural underskin mattress that works like an external support frame. And that jelly layer is exactly what sea lions eat. It's not the heart, not the liver, nothing vital. Sure, the fish loses some buoyancy, becomes less stable in the water, and starts wobbling around like a boat after a storm. But overall, it can keep living. Sunfish also live slow, calm lives, mostly drifting, which actually helps them heal after bites. But that same sluggishness means they get injured a lot. Hit by boats, nipped by sharks, attacked by parasites. And yet they continue gliding along as if nothing ever happened. There's a photo going around the internet that was taken in almost the same spot as that first story with the sea lion, only this time it shows a different predator, a shark. And it too took a hefty bite out of an ocean sunfish. The bite missed all the vital organs, so the fish survived even a wound like that. It looks horrifying. But the fish seems to treat it like an everyday inconvenience on the level of, scratch the car bumper again. But that's not all. The ocean sunfish actually uses the rear part of its body to stay alive. When an orca approaches, it flips belly up and sticks out its backside so the orca won't bite anything vital. A weird trick, but one that genuinely works. And the orca really does latch onto this soft, expendable area instead of biting into organs the fish can't live without. And that's only the beginning. Next comes a crocodile that lives without a jaw, an alligator that regrows its tail, an elephant without a trunk, and a whale that survived a 4-hour attack by orcas. And yes, you'll also see a she-wolf that wandered around for a week without her jaw. It's insane. In fact, the sunfish isn't the only terminator of the underwater world. Plenty of fish can survive even after losing major chunks of their bodies. Sometimes even common aquarium fish manage to keep living when half of them is practically gone. And sure, someone might say those are just death throes. The fish is dying anyway. You can't say anything for certain about that vital animal case, but there are real, well-documented stories of fish surviving for months with huge portions of their bodies bitten off. For example, at a time market, there was a fish that survived for 6 months without half of its body without a tail. It was a golden yellow barb. Apparently, it lost its tail while trying to escape from concrete pipe. Its attempt to break free and damaged its nose and tail on the part of its tail simply right away. After the body got out, in this case, people carrying around those who lived without curiosity. Fish is still alive. And once you actually see the fish that's been bitten off, but it's priceless where it's bone, let the fish die. Let the fish die.
worst thing researchers have ever seen. There are cases where adult elephants somehow manage to adapt to such injuries.
Not perfectly, of course, but they survive.
For example, an elephant with a damaged trunk may only be able to eat what's at head level. To drink it simply kneels down.
Sometimes elephants have uncircumcision feel with a little they can form causes of the elephants with clinking horns down the belly to a cage. And at the end of the experiment, elephants scripted the elephants clinking splat directly under the base of an ancient member of the hall. They walks it, they only hope to drink. So this case is closely the Hilton and the others, but it's not necessarily tamed. If its family group stays nearby and accepts it, they can make up for some of its difficulties. Elephants generally have very flexible adaptive behavior. And yes, everything depends on the extent of the injury. If the trunk is torn off completely at the base, survival is nearly impossible. But if only part of it's gone, half or a bit less, many elephants manage to adjust. They can drink with a shortened trunk, pick up food, and find ways to cope. Now let's dive back into the water. In 2021, whale watchers in Australia witnessed a scene you'd normally only see in documentaries labeled extreme rare footage. Two different predators suddenly teamed up and launched an attack on a young, perfectly healthy humpback whale. The male was only 2 to 3 years old. He survived the attack but lost his dorsal fin. It was a genuinely serious situation. The predators were in full assault mode while the humpback was desperately trying to escape. It all started with the sudden appearance of a group of 15 orcas. Right in front of the observers, they charged the whale again and again, trying to grab his dorsal fin, flip him over, and drown him. This tactic works well on calves and yearlings, but this guy was simply too big and too strong. The orcas physically couldn't overpower him, so the whale did the only logical thing. He bolted toward a tourist boat and spent nearly an hour hiding under the hull, using it as a shield. As the orcas circled around, the noise and splashing attracted more visitors. About 50 pilot whales, a kind of black dolphin, and a group of bull sharks. The commotion was so intense that one of the orca pods eventually decided to pull back. But the second pod, 6 orcas, stayed about 980 feet away, just waiting for the humpback to make a move. The largest orca, a massive male weighing almost 9 tons and known locally as El Nocho, tried to ram the humpback and break his jaw, but the strike failed. After that, the orcas finally gave up. The humpback took off toward the shore at top speed. Yes, they really did rip off his dorsal fin, but most importantly, his tail flukes and pectoral fins remained intact. Humpback whales have one unmistakable signature feature: their enormous pectoral fins.
These fins make up roughly a third of the whale's body length and can stretch over 15 feet. They're the longest pectoral fins of any cetacean, and in fact the longest appendages of any living animal on land or in the sea. Thanks to them, humpbacks are remarkably agile. For their size, they move almost like dolphins, able to turn within the length of their own bodies. If you look at the leading edge of the fins, you'll notice small bumps, little nodules that give the surface a special texture. They redirect the flow of water and make the fin much more efficient. Only humpback whales have these bumps. They run along the top of the head and even under the tip of the lower jaw. Inside each bump are vibrissae, short, stiff hairs, essentially underwater whiskers connected to a dense network of nerves. Their exact purpose is still unknown, but scientists think they help whales swim more effectively, hunt, and even interact with one another. There's also an interesting study. Humpback whales actively use their pectoral fins as a hunting tool. They can corral a school of fish by creating a barrier of fins and bubbles or move their fins in a way that the fish simply can't slip through. In short, a fin isn't just for the show, it's a working organ with plenty of functions. And even after losing it, a whale can theoretically survive. Yes, life will get noticeably harder. Yes, its maneuverability will take a hit and hunting will become more difficult. But the chance is still there, especially if the animal is young, strong, and capable of adapting. A humpback whale absolutely cannot survive without its tail fluke. In 2024, one such whale was spotted off the coast of Washington state with its tail torn off. Yes, it somehow adapted, but experts are certain it won't last long this way. Most likely exhaustion and starvation await it. The tail fluke is a whale's main engine. Without it, all it can do is drift helplessly at the surface. It probably lost its tail after being entangled for a long time in fishing lines or other debris. And we all know how this happens. Humpbacks have massive fins, while the ocean is now full of lines, nets, and bits of gear. Unfortunately, it's not uncommon for humpbacks to snag a line somewhere and drag it around. And yet, despite the injury, this particular whale has managed to swim about 373 miles since it was first spotted. Tough creature. But the problem is that while it can move, it can't feed properly. Experts believe it simply cannot hunt efficiently enough to sustain itself, and migration is out of the question. It will most likely remain in this region because it physically doesn't have the strength to go any farther. On October 4th, 2023, distressing footage of Wolf 1276F from the Junction Butte Pack in Yellowstone appeared on social media. The video, filmed by wildlife photographer Peggy Peregrine Spear, shows the collared female wolf walking across a field with a severe lower jaw injury. Only a small fragment of tissue remained. The injury was most likely sustained during a hunting clash with an elk or bison. According to reports, this happened around September 26th. In other words, more than a week had passed between the injury and the sightings. While people in the comments discussed the wolf's resilience and the harsh realities of nature, a more pressing question emerged: what now? Some suggested that the National Park Service or the organization Wolf Project should create and surgically attach a jaw prosthesis for the wolf. Others wrote that the wolf might no longer be able to eat or drink properly, and that the more humane option would be to end her misery. There were also comments like, isn't the collar meant to help track wolves and keep them alive longer so they can reproduce? Why not tranquilize the wolf, take her to a shelter, or at least stop the misery? But the National Park Service's position is unequivocal. They do not interfere in the lives of wild animals, do not treat them, and do not adapt them to captivity. Such interventions violate conservation principles and create zoo-like conditions in which animals depend on humans. Moreover, rehabilitation is a complex process with unpredictable outcomes. It requires significant resources, which in the view of the National Park Service are better directed toward large-scale programs aimed at preserving and restoring nature. The 2023 annual report of Yellowstone National Park states that the Wolf 1276F died, and the official cause of death is listed as starvation. The report also notes that both of her mandibles, the two halves of the lower jaw, were broken and held together only by soft tissue. Despite such a severe injury, project staff observed 1276F for some time as she continued moving with her pack, remained its leader, and tried to eat and drink as much as she physically could. She was last seen on October 6th. Most likely she died shortly after that. After the wolf's disappearance, specialists thoroughly searched the area where she'd last been spotted, as well as other places the pack regularly traveled through.
hoping to find her body and understand exactly what had happened, but they were never able to locate her. For the researchers, it was a difficult case. Witnessing such a serious injury paired with such extraordinary, almost unbreakable will to live. In short, when an animal with an injury still moves normally, runs, keeps up with its pack, and appears fine, it doesn't necessarily mean it will survive. In the case of 1276F, every system in her body was functioning except for one, the most essential one. She could no longer properly eat or drink, and without that, even the strongest and most resilient predator cannot survive for long. You owe me a like. See you later.